Quite excited to learn more about it because it is, as is so often the case, it's something that is entirely new to me. Just about it was brought to my attention just in recent weeks by our trusty spoken word guy, Kai Sinclair, who does such great work setting up interviews around the station here for programmers like myself. But I have a guest in the studio whose name is David Hohol. Hi, David.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for joining us. David is with the Calgary Immigrant Educational Society. He is the manager of communications and program development there. And there's going to be a film festival in town, and it's coming up very soon. That is to say, this coming Monday, March the 21st. It's the Anti-Racism Film Festival. And I saw it on my phone. This is in the John Dutton Theatre.
Yes,
at Central Library downtown.
Starts at 6 p.m.
At 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And that, if you haven't been to that theater, it's a pretty large theater. I don't know exactly how many people they see.
About 500.
About 500. So it's got plenty of space there. And David, just by way of easing us into the interview here, I wonder if you can do maybe a somewhat more expansive introduction of yourself.
Sure.
and who you are and how you came to be involved with Calgary Immigrant Educational Society, and then we'll go straight into the film festival itself, which I think is an important one.
Absolutely. Well, to go way, way back, I'm actually a U of C alumni, circa 2000. And a quick recap of that, I left the country immediately. Had student loans to pay for and had to go find a place to pay for it, and started off in Japan. I spent a few years in Japan, spent some time in Ireland, did a graduate degree there, spent nearly a decade in Dubai. I just got back January 2014, and I did a brief stint at Bow Valley College Center for Excellence in Intercultural Advancement, in Immigrant and Intercultural Advancement, and it was a temporary contract, and then I started working at CIS. And my job there is communications and program development, but it leans heavy to communications because one feeds the other, in fact. And I'm always looking, I blog, I write every day, and I'm always looking for ways to connect with the community, to be collaborative. As a bit of a side note, being new to the nonprofit industry, I saw at times a shocking lack of collaboration, where people are unaware of services that are available to them, and there's some competitiveness even amongst. And it's, in the end, I thought it was going to be all kumbaya because it's nonprofit, and it didn't really quite work that way. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make CIS a sort of a leader in collaboration. I have a community investor series where every week I'm highlighting a nonprofit here in town and telling people how to get a hold of them, the services that they offer. And while doing this that I stumbled across a woman by the name of Iman Bukhari. She has finished a full-length documentary called YYC Colors. She spent over a year working on it. She has her first official screening coming up, and I've actually in the works of arranging for another screening through Alison Curran McSweeney's International Avenues Business Revitalization Zone, quite a long name there. And it was through that I found out that she's this young lady, Iman Bukhari, is also the CEO of an organization called the Canadian Cultural Mosaic Foundation. And they have, for the first time, put together this anti-racism film festival. And as we were speaking earlier, I ran a story on it on our blog, and it got a lot of attention, and including the founder of the Canadian Cultural Mosaic Foundation and the organizer of this anti-racism film festival. She thanked me, and it's personal. After spending 15 years overseas, my former wife is a Palestinian Lebanese. My girlfriend is an Asian cocktail of Malaysian and Chinese and Filipino. My daughter is someone who will have to deal with perhaps this kind of view. She's lived in two different countries. She's half Arab and half Canadian. She speaks 3 different languages. She has a strange, impossible to recognize accent because of her international life. And as soon as I saw this film festival, I thought of my daughter, and I thought, what would I say to her when someday she has to come to me and ask me, why did this person say this? And so I started pushing the festival. Iman and I have been promoting it. We got about 300 people so far, I think, booked through Eventbrite and Facebook, just simply clicking on going. And it connects very well with my work. I work at an immigration settlement agency. I hear people tell these stories every day. Just by chance, that same week, a young lady came to me and told me that at her place of work, she's often, because of her accent, given a hard time, and she's a cashier at a supermarket, and I'll leave it at that because she has to be anonymous, but someone yelled at her, "Why don't you go back to your own country and learn English before you come here?" And it's disturbing to me. It's not Canadian. It's not what we're about. And then it just seemed to be organic, because then I discovered Iman, then there's this film festival. And now here I am talking to you, talking about what I do at CIS and talking about this film festival. And as we spoke of earlier, this uptick of marginalized, prejudiced thinking that is most definitely there with the Syrian refugee crisis. I don't know if you want to blame the media for the way they've handled it. I'm tapped right into it, and what a lot of people don't understand is we've brought in about 1,200 refugees. Half of those are children. The other half would be adults. One of those adults would usually be staying home, which means it leaves about 300 or 400 people that are being absorbed into an up-and-running settlement agency sector already. Everything's already there. The only issue was housing, absolutely. But it was misplayed, and everyone wanted to jump on the bandwagon and do something. We get calls every day, can we help Syrians? Well, we have Sudanese, we have Nepalese, we have people from the Congo. There's lots of people, but they want to volunteer and only help Syrians. I had the Calgary Herald show up and say, which class has the most Syrians in it? and I said to him, you can come in and take a picture, but the media has twisted it, and also down south, it is our big, loud, older brother to the south of us that we have to deal with as Canadians. Yep. And what the noise that's coming out of there right now is deeply disturbing. I don't want to get into it because it's not really about this conversation. Perhaps indirectly it is, but I feel this in my. And I'll even jump back a bit more Stephen Harper making the burqa a part of his political campaign and injecting it also is responsible for this too. It's just a perfect storm of a lot of things going on, and the timeliness of this film festival and the importance of the message behind it couldn't be better timed. I guess that's what timely means.
I think you're right. I don't want to talk about myself too much during this interview, because this interview is also not about me, just like it's not about Syria specifically necessarily. But I come at this thing from a particular perspective, which is that I was saying off air, when I first went to high school, it was a pretty monochromatic environment, and there weren't very many people who didn't look like me, although there were some. Started to see some different looking people from different cultures starting to appear in my high school when I was about grade 11, grade 12. They were the Vietnamese boat people. As I went into university, there were more and more different faces, different cultures, different perspectives on things, different views of the world, different ways of solving problems. And I found myself being very engaged by that, being very inspired by that. It was a very stimulating environment for me. And when I think about where my home is, it's not just Calgary, it's not just Alberta, it's not just Canada. It's this globe with brown and blue on it. It's the whole place that's my home. We've all got to live there together. Obviously in this era, there's so much turmoil globally, and how we choose to live together, to treat one another is a very big thing. It always is, but it's a particularly big thing. There's some real resonance for me right now. So when I think of this film festival, it seems like it's an opportunity to educate myself. I'm sure it would be for everyone, and I'm just trying to think of a way you might introduce the film festival, the opportunity that it represents for people. There's for one thing, there's going to be different kinds of films there. Like you just mentioned, the lady that was spending more than a year putting together her particular documentary film, but they're not all like that, are they? No,
and actually her particular film is screened separately because it's a full-length 90-minute documentary. All the films in this particular film festival are between 2 and 6 minutes long. What's interesting about it, and it also reflects to the technology I see all around you here with your iPad and your iPhone and your Android and your iMac, is that people can make and communicate ideas with their phones. And there are, I know that Iman had told me there's high school students who've made entire short films with their phone and edited it, and it's a double-edged sword. It's a tool. If the wrong person is using that tool, they can use that to get out the wrong messages. But if the right people are, you can, because of this racism and what the Anti-Racism Film Festival is about. By the way, I should mention, it was originally titled the 48-hour Anti-Racism Film Festival. Okay. Reason being is that people were given 48 hours to put it all together and submit. And she got 11 submissions and 4 or 5 people that couldn't quite finish on time. Those 11 will qualify for the evening's awards and rankings, however. I'm not 100% sure how that works, but they're eligible to win the evening's event. With all of us involved winning, actually, but someone always has to win something at a film festival. But the other ones were allowed to finish, and then that's when she invited me to submit one on my own. But what I think the film festival is about, and it's easy to click on a button and say, I like this meme about being anti-racist. I disagree with this. It's a way to do something, to get out of your house, to physically be somewhere and show your support for what is obviously something that's, I mean, I'd be hard pressed to find anyone to say that this is not a good idea and it's not timely. And perhaps the core of it all is that we're all reflections of one another. I've spent 15 years traveling around the world. It's very human. It's in our nature. It's in human nature to see that which is different first. But if you make it past that and expose yourself and give yourself the chance to experience, that's when you see a reflection in everybody around you. Mm-hmm. You see everyone representing you, and that's what that film festival is. I firmly believe 80% of, maybe I'm being idealistic, which isn't very often, but maybe 80% of people that have issues with other quote-unquote races, which is actually scientifically not even correct. There's only one race. If they're just exposed, if they have to sit in front of someone who's a Muslim or a Sikh or someone from Vietnam or someone, and hear them talk and see their wives or their husbands or their kids, it'll all just peel away and they'll see another human being in front of them. And that's what this Anti-Racism Film Festival is about, exposure and experience. And that's why I'm very happy to be a part of it.
It sounds super. I mean, one of the other things we were talking about off air was just the fact that I've had the privilege, I think, of being exposed to people from around the world, both through my own travels, but also through my wife's family to a large extent, which is still to some extent involved with Calgary Catholic Immigration Society. And so I met people from Vietnam, from El Salvador, from Nicaragua, from Bosnia, from Iran. And it's just exactly as you say. I mean, I came to know people in kind of, very relaxed social settings, and they were people that were a lot like me, albeit they had come from very difficult, sometimes very tragic circumstances, and they had many challenges they had to face. But I met families with beautiful children who have begun to thrive in our society, and they have brought so much to our country already in such a short period of time. Sometimes we're still talking about first generation people. Sometimes it's second generation people. But I've found exactly that it has made me feel like more of a citizen of the world, and it makes me feel as though I have a window into places elsewhere that I've never even been sometimes, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And
I think sometimes, too, it just makes me appreciate that in a time like this one where exposure of these kinds of issues is so critical, I don't necessarily need to feel like I need to try to lift the whole world on my shoulders. I just need to do my part, to shoulder my part of the load. And I can at least do that. I can at least do better. I can at least put out more effort to try to understand people from elsewhere, as they will do, trying to understand me as they try to integrate into this society. What about the nature of the films we're going to see next Monday? Can you tell me a little bit more about that, about the kinds of films that are being
Actually,
presented?
she's kept it quite under wraps.
Okay.
I've asked her a little bit about it, and she's very much treating it like a debut screening for all of them, no matter what the age or how little the films may be. And I actually kind of like that, because it gets if you're interested in going, it kind of makes it exciting. You go down there, okay, what am I going to see here? She has the only, as far as I know, she's the only one, Miss Bacari I'm speaking about, who's seen all the films. I've seen none of them except for my own, which I actually compiled a lot of. The opening stanza is just footage from CTV Calgary and Global News about all the stuff that's been going on and how it's I believe it's about 90 seconds long, the introduction. And the name of our CIS entry is called Broken Heart of the West, as opposed to Heart of the West, or I think it's now New Heart of the West. I have trouble keeping track of it. But in terms of the actual knowledge of what the other films are, I have to apologize. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I imagine all the filmmakers would be there, I would think. And I'm sort of just guessing. You might be able to say more about it, but presumably there would be some sort of a short introduction to every film, I would think, from the filmmakers, and then maybe opportunity to ask questions. Or
I believe so. At the end, I think at the end she's having there's not many. I mean, I think there's going to be about 15, and they're all it's supposed to run from 6 to 8 the screenings, because they're all 2 to 5 minutes long, 2 to 6 minutes long. But at the end of it all, there's maybe a chance for people to engage.
And this is film festival number 1, is it?
First one she's done, yeah.
And the intention is that it would continue.
Yes. Anyway. And I think it will get some traction. MLA for Calgary East, Miss Robin Luff, newly elected, is coming. I like the fact that she's coming because she's representing Forest Lawn area. I wasn't unaware that it's actually in Alberta. It is the most diverse district of any political quadrant in Alberta, where 1 in 3 people are newcomers, and relatively newcomers to Canada, and it can be a hotbed for those kinds of things. Another quick story about personal brushes with racism. I was living in Dubai. I wanted to buy a home. I told him the kind of house I was looking for, and I don't really care where it was in the city. And the realtor said to me, "I will not. Just so you know, I will not show homes in the Northeast. I don't want to go up there. Bunch of animals." This is a guy living in Calgary selling homes. He didn't want to go up to where the animals lived in the Northeast. This was 6 years ago. This was before the hotbed of racism or marginalized thinking that you see now. So if I could wrap up my side of things, I don't like it when people say it's a tiny minority, because I don't care if it's a tiny minority. And what is a minority? I hear Nenshi saying this quite a bit, and I'm actually a fan of his most of the time. But he always talks about how it's a tiny minority of Calgarians that are against this helping the Syrian refugees. He described himself as shaken by everything he'd seen, yet he calls it a tiny minority. There's that much power to shake, the mayor of a city and how he looks at things. It's not small, and I don't care. What is small? 1.2 million people in Calgary? What is small? 200,000 people out of that? 100,000? 50,000? It's not a tiny minority. There is a section, there is a quadrant, a segment of our population in Calgary, in Canada, that thinks this way. And it's our job to voice the opinions that it is wrong. It's our job to stand up and do something other than just click a button and say that I agree that it's wrong.
And the broader context, as you say, is one where we have an election campaign down south that has evolved in very, uninspiring ways, I guess would be one way to put it. There's all the stuff that's going on in Europe with, the razor wire and the fences and all the sort of the stigmatization that I think is so unfair, and the idea now that anyone who's not accepted as a refugee who lands in Greece will be sent back to Turkey. That this kind of momentum is very disturbing to me, actually, and you have to wonder where it might go if it's allowed to go there.
Unfortunately, and it's off topic, but it's not. Unfortunately, it's going to go a certain way there in the United States of America when the individual whose name I don't need to say wins the GOP candidacy, because he will. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion. The platform that this individual is going to have, the legitimization of how he has ran his campaign and the things that he has said, alone is damaging for a generation. And then he's going to, for 6 months, stand there and thump his chest on an even bigger platform. We need to voice ourselves as saying that this is wrong. We need to do things like this festival, and we need to stand up and point it out that this is wrong. We're headed in the wrong direction here.
Well, let's just reiterate that this festival, the 48-hour Anti-Racism Film Festival, is happening this coming Monday, March the 21st, and it's at the John Dutton Theatre at the Central Library. And again, the start time on the festival
6 p.m.
is 6 p.m. Is it? Do you get in by purchasing a ticket? Is it a?
You don't have to purchase a ticket, okay. But we would recommend that you go to the Facebook page. It's 48-hour Anti-Racism Film Festival. Okay. Click going, eventbrite.ca, and search Anti-Racism Festival and register. Okay. And you actually get physical tickets. But as far as actually having to produce something at the door, no, I believe that's not the case. But it helps the organizers at least monitor how many people are going. It's the first one, and it's kind of seeing, who knows? I mean, maybe there'll be 250 people, or maybe there'll be people that we can't fit in. We're going to test the waters with this and see how it goes.
And 11 different films.
15.
And they're 2 to 5 minutes in length.
Yes.
And it's going to be a surprise to us all.
Pretty much, yeah.
What gets screened there. Just by way of wrapping things up, you talked off air before about trying to, and on air too, about trying to find ways to bring the different nonprofit societies together. Do you have any vision for where that might go, starting from this is year one for the festival, and your role as the manager of communications and program development at Calgary Immigrant Educational Society, how that might actually look going forward?
It takes effort. It takes reaching out. There's again, I'm 1 year into a nonprofit sector, and what I've seen, there's a lot of people that'll knock on the door and ask for something, rather than knock on the door and ask, how can I help you do what you are doing? And I myself, and at CIS, that I've taken upon myself to do that. I get phone calls from people when I highlight their organization, asking me, why? Why did you do that? And I said, because you guys are a great organization, and I'm building collaborative opportunities. Alison Karim McSweeney is in charge of the revitalization of 17th Avenue. She's very community-minded, too. We're working together. ASA, which is the Alberta Association of Immigrant Settlement Agencies, basically the professional development department for all of Alberta, for practitioners, settlement practitioners, sees us partnering with them to produce workshops about collaboration. It just takes a knock on your door. I mean, have a coffee, talk about what people are doing. Also, I'm currently working on, again with Allison, getting a TED Talks that would talk exactly about this, and that would be a great opportunity too. We're actually organizing a comedy festival for the Calgary Comedy Festival is in September, from the September 25th to October 1st. So we're planning on a fundraiser the week before to lead into it, where we're inviting our brothers and sisters in the industry. It just takes opening the door and saying hello, and that gets back to the baby boomers actually using social media better, which is a whole other show. We'll come back and talk about that one better.
Love to. And just, I'd like to underline too. Here's one website that you can check out for related information about these kinds of things, and that is immigrant-education.ca, and that's the website that is associated with Calgary Immigrant Educational Society, where David Hohall is the manager of communications and program development. And I'm just looking here. You can check out the website. You can like them on Facebook. You can follow them on Twitter. You can connect on LinkedIn. You can see who the community investors are. What in terms of social media, have I missed anything there?
No, that's it. You got it all.
Okay. Great. So this coming Monday, 48-hour Anti-Racism Film Festival. It's March 21st. It's at John Dutton Theatre at the Calgary Central Library, and it's going to be a bit of a surprise as to what actually is screened there. But it sounds like it's an evening with all kinds of potential to lead in different positive directions in a time where sort of positive, actions and perspectives would be very welcome, very beneficial for everybody. And I'd like to thank you for making the time to come in and talk to us. It's been great. I want to see year 2 of the festival as well.
Absolutely.
And 3 and 4 and 5.
I hope
and so on and so on. And I think there's plenty of potential maybe for you to come in and talk about other things, too, that the Calgary Immigrant Educational Society is involved with. I'm sure we could easily identify, subjects that need exposure, things happening that need exposure other than the film festival, although that was the topic of conversation today. But just leave open that invitation. I'd love to talk to you again.
I'd love to come back, and thank you very much for letting us come in and talk about this. It was a pleasure to come in, and you're helping us do what we're trying to do here, which is to get people exposed to the idea.